This is part 2 of the Truth Universe main bots review, where I'll be covering DDs, not to be confused with DDs. If you missed part 1, where I cover Malefics, you can click the I in the top right to see it, or wait till the end of the video, or just check the description down below. Used by Declan Akaba in Art V, the deck uses numerous extra deck mechanics to make really strong boards. Though we currently only have Fusion and Synchros open to us, the deck will likely see future support as Duel Links unlocks its Seas, Pendulums, and Link monsters, so this might be a good investment for the long term. Also, before I go any further, DDD is a part of DD, but DD is not a part of DDD. Hopefully that's not too confusing. The first monster, and core to the deck, is DD Swirl Slime. It acts as not only a polymerization, but also a fusion material in the summoning of a DDD monster. It's like those head sealed monsters, but even better because you can use Swirl Slime from the hand. Also, by banishing it from the grave, you can special summon a DD monster from your hand, which not only helps extend your plays, but also triggers your Flame King Genghis' effect. Swirl Slime is a staple 3 of. Next is DD Ghost, a level 2 tuner that, when sent to the grave, lets you send from your deck to the grave a card with the same name as a DD monster or contract card in your grave. This helps you fuel your graveyard and extend your plays. Also, when Ghost is banished, you get to recur one of your banished DD monsters or Dark Contract cards, except Ghost, and return it to the graveyard. Ghost is extremely useful, and I think it's a 2 of minimum, though some decks will run it at 3. The last tuner is DD Night Howl, which is a level 3 unlike DD Ghost, and when normal summoned, lets you special summon one of your DD monsters from your grave, kinda like Jund Synchron, although its attack and defense become 0, and you're locked into Fiend type monsters for the rest of the turn, which doesn't really affect this deck, though it can come up, and it limits what you can summon on that turn. Night Howl is a fantastic normal summon and pushes your plays even further. Although it doesn't do anything on its own, I think running it at 2 is fine, although the Synchro variant might run it at 3. DD BERFOMET lets you change a DD's level to a number between 1 and 8, then locks you into DD monsters for the rest of the turn. I think it'll only be good in the Synchro variant, as BERFOMET along with either the tuners gives access to both Gust King Alexander and Gust High King Alexander, since BERFOMET can augment levels on its own. I don't think this card will be worth running in the best builds of DD, as there are better summons in the deck, and its natural stats aren't all that impressive. Still, maybe a 1 of in a standard build, maybe a 3 of in more synchro-oriented builds. DD Pandora is a strange card. When destroyed by your opponent and sent to the graveyard, and you control no cards, you get to draw 2 cards. 2 things make this card basically unplayable: its level and its activation conditions. As a level 5, it's a pain to get on the field, and its condition of demanding that you control no other cards to draw 2 cards when it's destroyed is excessive. I'm sure it's trying to recreate the feeling of the myth of Pandora's bots or something, but it's more like a trash can. Onto the bigger main deck monsters, DD Vice TYPHON, when normal summoned, lets you tribute a DD monster to special summon a DDD monster from your deck, which can only be DDD Dragon King Pendragon at the moment. But you'll never be normal summoning Vice TYPHON, so that effect is basically irrelevant. Its second effect, however, is the real reason to consider running this card. When sent to the grave, you can fusion summon a level 8 or higher DDD monster by banishing the fusion materials from your grave. This makes accessing some of the fusion monsters much easier, which I'll talk about in the extra deck section, that DD struggle to put on the field with their current card pool. I've seen some theory deck lists run this at 0, and I've seen some running at 3. It definitely expands the combos for DDs, but at the cost of some more bricky hands. DDD Dragon King Pendragon is a really interesting card. By tributing a dragon and a fiend from your hand or field except itself, you can special summon it from your hand. First of all, what dragons does DD have? Every DD in this box is a fiend type monster. Its second effect is that once per turn, you can discard a card to boost this card's attack by 500 until the end of the turn, then you can pop a backrow on the field. This effect is what makes it pretty good. It can lead to some nasty boards, but this card can also do nothing in your hand because of its impossible summoning condition. Some people want to run it at 0 or 1, and some people want to run it at 3 because of certain combos. Now, onto the heart and soul of the deck, the spells and traps. Many of them are called contracts, where you get to access some powerful effects, but at the cost of 1,000 life points during each of your standby phases for each contract on your side of the field. The first contract, and easily the most powerful, is Dark Contract with the Gate. It lets you add a DD monster from your deck to your hand during your main phase. Dark Contract with the Gate is a mandatory 3-of for its ability to bolster the consistency of your deck, as well as making it more manageable to search some of the 1-ofs like Pendragon if you're only running one. Next is Dark Contract with the Swamp King, which lets you fusion summon a fiend type monster with cards from your hand or field. But if you're going to summon a DD fusion monster, which you'll most likely be doing with Dark Contract with the Swamp King, you can banish monsters from your graveyard as fusion material too. In fusion orientated builds, this card is a 3-of. In more synchro heavy builds, it's a 1-of. It depends what you're trying to do with your DD deck. Forbidden, Dark Contract with the Swamp King has 2 effects, so the damage you take during each of your standby phases is 2000 instead of the standard 1000. Its first effect is that you can special summon a DDD monster from your hand in defense, but its effects are negated. While this card can help get out some monsters that would otherwise break your hand, Swirl Slime does the same thing, and it's objectively better, since it doesn't negate their effects, nor force them into defense. Its second effect lets you fusion summon, using monsters from your hand or field, including the monsters special summoned by this first effect. Wait, this card is just the worst Dark Contract with the Swamp King. This card is a complete waste of space. Honestly, just don't run it at all. Dark Contract with the Witch is the first continuous trap contract card that acts like a Raigeki break for the deck, which is more useful than Malefic Clawstream for Malefic because it can pop any card in the field. Also, all your fiend type monsters gain 1000 attack, but only during your opponent's turn, which helps them not get beat over, but it doesn't help you beat over your opponent's monsters. Okay. It's a decent card, but I don't think there's enough room in any build of DD to run this card, even at 1. Backrow space is tight in this deck, given Duel Links only having 3 spell or trap card zones, as well as the contracts being continuous spells or traps taking up a bunch of space in your backrow. Maybe it's a 1-of at most. The last contract is Dark Contract with Errors, which lets you negate all other traps on the field if you control a DD monster. It's useful when you're pushing for game and you don't want to fear backrow, but doesn't do anything in quite a few meta matchups such as Thunder Dragons or Blackwings. Same with Dark Contract with the Witch. It's not a bad card, it's just there probably isn't room for it in the deck. DD REROLL protects your Dark Contract cards from your opponent's card effects that would otherwise destroy them, and can banish itself from the grave to let you shuffle into your deck 3 of your banished DD cards. The backrow doesn't really need this level of protection, and the recycling effect is useless, so don't run it. DD Recruits lets you add DD monsters and or Dark Contract cards from your grave to your hand up to the number of more monsters your opponent controls than you. If it was a spell, I would consider running one, but it's too slow for DDs, and this is a combo deck, so don't run it. The last backrow card in DD is Contract Laundering. By destroying your Dark Contract cards, you get to draw the same number as the amount destroyed, then gain 1000 life points for each card drawn. This card doesn't really help you make your plays, and the fact that it's a trap means it's also really slow. While it can prevent you from taking a massive amount of life points each of your standby phases, having to wait to leverage your contracts into pluses takes way too long for such an explosive deck. Now, onto the extra deck. We have DDD Flame King Genghis, a level 6 fusion monster with 2000 attack and 1500 defense that requires 2 DD monsters to fusion summon. While its stats aren't all that impressive, its effect is what makes it so great. When another DD monster is special summoned to your side of the field, you can special summon another DD monster from your grave. Also, when Flame King Genghis is destroyed, you can recur a Dark Contract from your grave and add to your hand. The first effect is what makes this card shine. It pushes your plays and makes it easier to get out your other boss monsters. The second effect rarely comes up, but I think Genghis will be a mandatory 1 or 2 of in either the fusion or synchro variants. DDD Oracle King Dark. Oh, I get it, it's dark, but it's also a reference to Joan Dark. Huh. It's a level 7 fusion monster with 2800 attack and 2000 defense, and has the simple effect where instead of taking effect damage, you gain that much life points instead. This includes your Dark Contracts. While I don't think that effect is great, its stats and easy summoning condition of any 2 DD monsters makes it at least a 1-of in any DD build. DDD Dragonbane King Beowulf is a level 8 fusion monster with 3000 attack, 2500 defense, and requires a DDD monster and a DD monster. It lets all your DD monsters do piercing damage, and during your standby phase, you can destroy all cards in the spell and trap zones. The first effect helps you close out games with your big monsters, which is useful considering the bursty nature of this deck. Beowulf helps close out games and should be at least a 1-of in any DD build. The last fusion monster is wait, give me a second. DDD Wave Oblivion King Caesar Ragnarok. A level 10, 3200 attack, 3000 defense monster that requires 2 DDD monsters to fusion summon, and once per turn, when battling, you can return one other DD or Dark Contract card you control to your hand to equip one face-up monster your opponent controls to Ragnarok, and then Ragnarok gains that monster's attack. Unlike Relinquish, which is restricted to one monster equipped on it at any given time, Ragnarok can equip as many monsters as you can fit. While a great boss monster on paper, it can be a bit difficult to get on the field because it requires 2 DDD monsters. Also, it has absolutely no protection against card effects, which makes it a sitting duck against the most meta decks, which will rarely let it get to battle phase. I think running 1 is fine because of Dark Contract with the Swamp King, but it's not the most impressive boss monster to me. Since DDDs have wide access to a range of summoning mechanics, they even have synchro monsters. DDD Gust King Alexander is a level 7 synchro with 2500 attack and 2000 defense. It requires a DD tuner and one or more non-tuners, and has the effect that if another DD monster is normal or special summoned, you can special summon one level 4 or lower DD monster from your grave. While its effect is eerily similar to Genghis, the fact that its effect triggers from normal summoning as well as special summoning is a huge plus, since you might not always have a way to special summon after making Gust King, but you might still have your normal summon. But it's also a bit worse since it restricts you to level 4 or lower DD monsters, which means it cannot summon any DDD monsters. Gust King is useful for synchro climbing into Gust High King, but isn't totally necessary to run. Speaking of, DDD Gust High King Alexander, these names are such a mouthful, is a level 10 synchro monster with 3000 attack, 2500 defense that requires a tuner and any non-tuner to summon, meaning that Parallel Gear plus a level 8 Malefic can special summon him in a Malefic deck. But whereas in Malefics this is basically a vanilla monster, in DDs he has the effect where if there are 3 more DDD monsters on the field, which includes your opponent's field, this card gains 3000 attack. Like a combination of Genghis and Gust King, if another DD monster is normal or special summoned, you can special summon any DD monster from your graveyard. It's quite the formidable boss monster, especially when it reaches 6000 attack, but those are just numbers. Similar to the other DD boss monsters, it has no floating, no protection, just big stats. I think most DD builds will play at least one, just because it can end games so suddenly with its sheer stats and useful effect. Now onto some combos. The first combo is using SWIRL plus Pendragon and Night Howl. Use SWIRL and Pendragon to fusion summon into Genghis, then normal summon Night Howl to special summon Pendragon from the grave. Then you can use Pendragon's effect to pop a backrow if you want. Then synchro into High King Alexander with Night Howl and Pendragon. Using Genghis' effect, you can special summon Pendragon from the grave, and then since its once per turn effect isn't a hard once per turn, you can use Pendragon's effect again to discard another card to pop another backrow. The next combo is SWIRL plus TYPHON plus Ghost. Using SWIRL's in-hand effect to fuse itself with TYPHON to special Genghis. Then normal summon Ghost or banish SWIRL to special summon Ghost from your hand, then synchro summon into Stardust Spark Dragon using Ghost plus Genghis. Use TYPHON's effect in the graveyard to banish itself and Genghis to special summon Beowulf. Now you have a Beowulf alongside a Stardust Spark to protect it during either player's turn. The last combo I'm going to show off is SWIRL Slime plus Night Howl plus Swamp King plus Pendragon. First you activate SWIRL Slime, sending itself and Pendragon to the grave to special summon Flame King Genghis. Then you normal summon Night Howl to special summon Pendragon. Next you synchro summon Gust High King Alexander. Then activate Flame King Genghis to special summon Pendragon from your grave. You activate Swamp King, send Pendragon Genghis to the graveyard to special summon Beowulf. You activate Gust High King Alexander's effect to special summon Pendragon from the graveyard. To review, DDs are a decent rogue contender. They can make some very formidable boards with very powerful effects, and they also generate a ton of free advantage, but they're very inconsistent. The deck heavily relies on Swirl Slime to get its plays going, but with essentially only 6 copies of it, counting Dark Contract with the Gate's ability to grab it from the deck, I think DDs are a less consistent Blackwings. The deck is good going second, but since many of the best plays are 3 to 4 card combos, the deck will struggle over the course of numerous games. Here are some deck lists. The left is more fusion orientated, the right is more synchro based. Stay tuned for part 3 where I cover the rest of the notable cards from Truth Universe, and thanks for watching.